We're all taught pretty much the same thing. Get a good education, land a good job, and save your money. But what if that last part, the saving part, is actually a trap? We're going to get into this because the way wealthy people think about money is, well, it's completely different from what most of us have ever been told. I know, it sounds a little nuts, but just think about this for a second. Is the money you're so carefully putting away in a savings account, is it actually making you poorer over time? The answer, and this might sting a little, is probably yes. And here's exactly why. Take a look at this number. Let's say the cost of everything around you goes up by 3% a year. That's inflation. But your savings account is only giving you a measly 1% interest. See the problem? You're not breaking even. You're actively losing 2% of your buying power every single year. So what this really boils down to is that whenever the inflation rate is higher than your savings rate, your money is literally losing value. The dollars you have in the bank can buy less and less stuff. It's like you're trying to fill up a bucket that's got a hole in the bottom. You're just fighting a losing battle. This gets us to what you could call the illusion of safety. That path that we're told is so safe is actually under constant attack from two silent wealth killers that are always chipping away at your money. Inflation, which we just talked about, and, you guessed it, taxes. Let me tell you about Ted and Ellen. Their story is a perfect example of this. They did everything right, by the book. Good schools, great careers, they were making more money than they ever had before, but they still felt like they were living paycheck to paycheck, completely trapped in what they called a middle-class nightmare. Does that sound at all familiar? And here's the trap they were caught in. It's the path that almost every employee is on. First, you earn your income. Then, bam, before you even get to touch it, the government withholds taxes. And finally, you get to spend whatever is left over. The government always gets its money first. But now, check this out. The wealthy, especially business owners, play a completely different game. They earn income, then they spend it on things that help the business grow, legitimate expenses, and only then, at the very end, do they pay taxes on what's left. It's just a simple switch in the order of operations, but believe me, it changes absolutely everything. And that little switch is really all about a massive shift in mindset. Because it turns out it's not really about how much money you make. What really matters is how you make your money and which set of rules you're playing by. Just look at how clearly this lays out the two models. For the employee on the left, taxes are the very first thing you pay. They're your biggest expense. But for the owner on the right, taxes are the last thing they pay. This one single difference is the entire foundation for building wealth in a tax-advantaged way. So this difference in strategy points to two totally different ways of thinking about money. Most of us are taught about compound interest, the idea of just letting your money sit there and grow. But the wealthy, they often focus on something else entirely, financial velocity. And that is all about keeping your money moving. Compound interest is basically a hoarding strategy. You park your money, you wait, and you wait. The big problem, though, is that by letting your money just sit there for years and years, you're leaving it totally exposed to those silent killers we talked about, inflation and taxes. Financial velocity, on the other hand, is all about circulation. It's about how fast your money is moving and working for you. Instead of $1 having just one job, like sitting in a bank account, the goal is to make that same dollar do multiple jobs at once, creating wealth way, way faster. Okay, so how do you actually do that? How do you get that velocity? Well, that brings us to the playbook. And this isn't about finding some shady secret tricks. It's about understanding and using the incentives that the government has already put in place for you. And this quote just says it all. The word loophole has such a negative sound to it, right? But as CPA Diane Kennedy points out, they're just government incentives. The government actually wants people to use them to help get the economy moving. So where are these incentives? They're mostly packed into two main areas, small businesses and real estate. And why there? Well, it's pretty simple. The government wants to reward the people who are creating jobs and providing housing because those are two of the biggest engines of the entire economy. Let's look at another real story. Ruben was a doctor, and his wife, Clarice, was a nurse. They were making great money, but they were getting absolutely crushed by taxes. So they made a big strategic move. Clarice quit her nursing job to become a full-time real estate professional. And the result? Get this. In their very first year, their tax bill dropped by $50,000. That was more money than she was making as a nurse. All because they strategically moved into a sector that the government wants to reward. That's a game changer. Okay, so this is how that financial velocity really works in the real world, especially with real estate. You use your income to buy a property. As that property goes up in value, you can borrow against that new equity. Now, the cash you pull out is a loan, not income, so it's completely tax-free. And then you take that tax-free cash and go buy another property. See, you're literally recycling your own capital to grow your wealth. All of this leads to one final and honestly, the most important part of this whole thing. Knowing the playbook is one thing, but the responsibility to actually use it, well, that's all on you. And here's the hard truth. The economic system we live in is, in many ways, designed to profit from people not knowing this stuff. Banks make money from your debt, corporations make money from you spending, and the government makes more money when you pay the highest tax rates possible. The only person who really profits from your financial education is you. This quote right here says everything. Your financial advisor isn't going to teach you this. The companies you buy from definitely won't. If you truly want to change your financial life, you have to take what some people call drastic responsibility for learning these rules yourself. And look, I know it can seem like a lot to learn, but just remember this classic saying. The cost of staying ignorant about how money and taxes actually work is so much greater than the cost of just educating yourself. So I'll just leave you with this last thought. None of this is a secret. The tax code, the rules for business, the strategies for real estate, it is all public information. This is the official rulebook for the financial game we are all playing. So the only real question left is, why aren't you using it?